My name is Parrish and I am your Black History Bestie. Today we'll be talking about Black Wall Street. In just 15 minutes, I'll go over 3 things: background information, what happened, and what was the result. So grab your pens and paper because class is in session. So let's go over some background information because I need to set the scene for you. So slavery had ended about 40 years ago, but they have been working for free for 400 years. So at this time, slavery ended and Black people, they didn't have any food, they didn't have any money, they didn't have anywhere to live. So many of them became sharecroppers. Basically, this meant that they were working and continuing to do their slave work, but this time they got a little bit of a pay or some type of lodging or food or whatever. Basically, it was slavery light is what I like to call it. So in the 1910s and 20s, many white people saw a huge opportunity in Oklahoma, all because of this new industry, which was oil. There were a lot of opportunities to make a lot of money because at this time, cars were just invented. We were just getting railroad tracks going. So oil was a precious commodity and sold for so much money. So now that all these white people were moving to Oklahoma, they thought it was a good idea to start digging there and start making money. Now, Native Americans were already there, but of course, white people moved there and Oklahoma became the 46th state. White people were making a lot of money, so naturally, Black people saw an opportunity to make money too. They became their maids, their cooks, their drivers, their shoe shiners, whatever they could be for these white people, they made money from that. At this time, Black people were also beginning to make good money, and they even became doctors and lawyers and some of the top in the area. So at this time, Oklahoma was kind of late to the game. They were the 46th state. So they did what all the other states did. They adopted Jim Crow. This meant separate but equal. And we all know equal was not equal. So at this time, white people had 3 names for Black people. They called them colored, Negro, and their favorite one, nigger. So if there was a white water fountain, there was a colored water fountain. If there was a white school, there was a colored school. If there was a white grocery store, there was a colored grocery store. And don't even think about looking a white woman in the eye at the wrong time in the wrong place. That would be the last look you gave. So naturally, Tulsa at this time split. There was white Tulsa and there was the Greenwood neighborhood across the train tracks, which was Black Wall Street. Now, because at this time Black people were making pretty good money, they were able to build everything from the ground up, and it was beautiful. They had their own schools, their own grocery stores, their own doctors, lawyers, real estate, jazz joints, everything. And because Jim Crow existed, they couldn't spend their money over in white Tulsa, so every dollar they got was spent right there in the Black community of Greenwood neighborhood. So naturally, Blacks at this time became very wealthy. It's been documented that these Black people were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, which back then was a lot of money. And naturally, white people started feeling some type of way. They were like, wait a minute, hold up now. They getting more money than us. Let's get into what happened. So, 19-year-old Dick Rowland allegedly assaulted 17-year-old white Sarah Page. And of course, this sent the white community into an uproar. All hell broke loose. Now, they took Dick and arrested him, but they were not satisfied with waiting until the investigation took place. So a huge angry mob of white people with their guns were outside of the jail demanding for the release of Dick. And they wanted to do whatever they wanted with him. They wanted to tear him apart limb by limb. Now, the black people heard about this and they showed up. They were ready to go. They said, wait a minute. They had their guns and were like, you're not getting him. So the jail told the black people that Dick was safe and don't worry about it. So the black people were outnumbered anyway, and they didn't have nearly as much ammunition as the white people. So they fled back to Greenwood, back to their side of the tracks. But the white people were not satisfied. They were enraged with hate and anger, and the black people needed to be taught a lesson. The black people needed to be put in their place. So they stormed Greenwood and went through house by store, looting, burning everything in this neighborhood. They burned them all down, just going house by house, yelling, come out nigger, with their guns. They were shooting into these places, and everything was just a big, huge war. These white people needed to see blood. They were coming for blood. They sat on top of the hills with their guns pointed directly into the Greenwood neighborhood when none stopped shooting. Over and over and over again. Pow, 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 pow. Shooting, 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 shooting non-stop. This went on for 2 days. May 31st, 1921 to June 1st, 1921. The only reason it stopped is because the Oklahoma National Guard had to step in. So, what was the result? Well, at this point, Black Wall Street was up in flames. There was nothing left, hardly anything left of this black community. They had shot everything down. Black bodies were just piled on top of each other. Many hundreds died, and thousands of black people had to move because they didn't have anywhere to go because their home that they knew of was now gone. For years after that, black people and white people of Tulsa never spoke about those bloody days ever again. Black people were too traumatized and too scared and afraid that it would happen again, and white people like to be in denial and act as if it never happened. So for years, this historic moment, this historic massacre was not talked about and not spoken about. So finally, there were some survivors that decided it was time for their story to be heard. Journalists and historians started researching more and more about these bloody days and about what actually occurred. Eldoris Actor Macandici was just 9 years old when this attack happened, but she remembered the words of her mother that morning vividly. Her mother told her, "Wake up, we have to go. The white people are killing the colored folks." Another survivor, Wilhelmina Guest Howell, was just 14 years old when those massacres happened. She recounted that story as if it happened yesterday. And many others like her began telling those stories, and just no lies were told. There were no exaggerations. This was the historical and honest and ugly truth. Because of those survivors like Wilhelmina and Eldoris, and even the white people that witnessed it who actually began to speak up and address their guilt, now we can talk about it. And now we know exactly what happened, and we're still learning so that we won't repeat this history. Like my mother always says, if we don't know our history, we'll be repeating it. So I'm so glad you were able to listen to me and everything that I learned from the Tulsa Massacre. This is the book that I read, and it's called The Burning, and it's by Tim Madigan. And he actually interviewed a lot of the survivors, and he has a really good historical count of everything that happened. And I loved reading this book because it showed from their point of view how they were living during this time. I highly recommend reading this book, taking the quiz, making sure you do your own research, because this is only a short snippet of what actually happened. I would love to explore more and more about Tulsa and what happened to Black Wall Street. You should too. Can you imagine what it would have felt like to be a 9-year-old waking up and hearing the cry of your mother saying that white people were killing the colored folks? I cannot imagine what it would be like to experience that. And I'm so glad I don't have to, because that's something I never want to experience. But it happened, and it's real, and it's the truth. And we need to spread this truth. So for now, let's all think about this and what we can take away, and I'll see you in the next one.